I'm disappointed in you, Commissioner. You served my family well.
I am sorry to have disappointed you, my lady.
As for now, you must live in exile on the moon of Paraquat.
What happened to The Mandalorian? How did the show that I once considered to be the salvation of Star Wars had such a declining quality? The great dialogues.
I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold.
The creative cinematography, the captivating plot. It's gone now. What happened? Well, I decided to analyze the series and found 4 ways in which The Mandalorian, one of the best shows on TV, lost the way. There's a clear issue within the first 5 episodes of Season 3, and it's a lack of direction. The first 2 seasons had a straightforward plot that was easy to follow, but the current season seems to have too much going on and not a clear goal, especially Mando, the main character, who has now been sidelined in his own show, so we are left wondering, what does he want? How has the character evolved from the previous season? We don't know. As a matter of fact, the plot has become too convoluted with several plot lines that don't connect with each other. Take a look at episode 3, titled The Convert. How did any of that affect the main plot? Fans could argue that it expands the Star Wars lore, but as we have already seen in Andor, expanding a universe within the story can be meaningful to the plot if done right. Unfortunately, the uneven pace and lack of direction have created unprecedented disinterest in the series. Secondly, The Mandalorian has abandoned what has made it special in the first place. Season 1 of the show stood out by presenting a corner of the Star Wars universe where there was no mention of the Force or the Skywalkers. The series also stood out for handling an episodic format where each adventure could stand on its own. Additionally, the series took inspiration from the classic westerns and samurai films by Akira Kurosawa that inspired George Lucas himself, managing to achieve something fresh, nostalgic, and very cool. However, ever since the second season, the show abandoned the episodic format for a serialized one, and its small scale expanded to such an extent that now we have several spin-offs and a Mandoverse that will culminate in a movie. But what pains me the most is that the creative vision was lost in the mix as well. Greg Fraser's incredible and moody cinematography disappeared, and was replaced by a more homogeneous one, with such poor blocking that I no longer felt that I was watching a movie with each episode, but rather like a typical Disney Plus show. I mean, how did we go from this to this?
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
Each new episode of this season hasn't shied away from the fact that it's pulling stuff straight from the Clone Wars and Rebels. Now more than ever, it feels like you need to do homework to understand what's going on in the season. But this didn't happen overnight. It slowly started in the second season. Let me explain. The first season's plot was so special because it attracted audiences who had never seen a Star Wars movie before, which was a great example of putting the plot and characterization above all else. However, since the introduction of Bo-Katan in the second season, viewers must now be familiar with Clone Wars or Rebels to know who she is, the origin of the Darksaber, or to know what is Mandalore. If you didn't watch those, good luck, buddy. Also, I'd like to add that while I loved the return of Luke Skywalker in the Season 2 finale, it's just another example of Disney reminding us that the Star Wars universe is a small one, where a family is the center of everything and everyone knows each other. Flash forward to Season 3, and that got even worse. If you didn't watch the Book of Boba Fett, you didn't know why Grogu reunited with Mando after watching him living with Luke. Instead of just being Easter eggs or winks to the audience, all of these additional elements have become the central plot, creating a separation between hardcore Star Wars fans and those who just watch The Mandalorian. This is a major problem, because there's no better way to alienate your audience than making them feel isolated. And the numbers don't lie. There has been a decrease in interest and low ratings for the current season. But I think that the most determining factor in the fall of The Mandalorian has been the inconsistency of its own script. For 2 seasons, the story developed Din Djarin's arc as that of a lone bounty hunter who didn't care about anyone but himself, to being a father figure to a child with whom he identified as an orphan. And just at the end of Season 2, we witnessed how he had to learn to let go of his own interests in favor of a cause greater than himself. But scratch all that. We need to sell more toys, cause look how cute Grogu is. Since the two reunited, all of Mando's development went out the window. to the point that now his relationship with Grogu has stagnated, lacking any purpose in the plot, and Grogu has become practically a meme. And what about that epic storyline with the Darksaber by the end of Season 2? It was an excellent hook to see if Mando and Bo-Katan would fight for it and for the leadership of Mandalore. But come Season 3 and the show just pretended like it didn't exist for 5 whole episodes. And in Episode 6, where we finally get to see what will happen with that potential conflict, Mando simply hands the saber to Bo-Katan and she accepts it on a technicality.
Well, that's just lazy writing.
They took the easy and less creative way out. Why give Mando the saber in the first place if he's not going to do anything with it? All of this happens in Episode 6 titled Guns for Hire, which I feel it's like a microcosm of all the issues with this season. This has been one of the worst received episodes by critics and fans alike, and although they tried to return to the episodic nature of the first season, its execution was terrible. First of all, although Star Wars is no stranger to celebrity cameos, here it features 3 of the most distracting cameos in television history, with Jack Black, singer Lizzo, and even Doc Brown himself, which I need to confess it completely took me out of the experience. And although the episode does bring us a little closer to the end of the season, it does so in a way that it feels inert, anticlimactic, and above all, confusing. This episode may not sideline our heroes like in The Convert, but instead sends them on a cliché-filled detective investigation, which made me feel the whole thing boring and underdeveloped, culminating in a poorly choreographed final fight, lacking any tension and emotional weight. After finishing the episode, I wondered, why have Grogu in the series at all, if they're just going to leave him with a babysitter again and give him a meaningless knighthood title for doing nothing? Is Mando closer to giving up his strict interpretation of the creed and taking off his helmet? What's his arc in this season? Why are the dialogues so terrible? Why should I care about this show if the creators make minimal effort? As Seth Field once said in his book Screenplay: The Foundations of Screenwriting, all drama is conflict. Without conflict, you have no action. Without action, you have no character. Without character, you have no story. And without story, you have no screenplay. And that's precisely what's been missing in the latest season. Mando and Grogu's journey lacks conflict because they don't really want anything. And if your protagonist doesn't want anything, why should we care? To make matters worse, when Mando hands over the Darksaber to Bo-Katan, it's the official sign that this is now Bo's show. But let's face it, Bo's kind of an interesting character, but she delivers all of her lines with the enthusiasm of a tax accountant and gives me no reason to care. The protagonist has been replaced in his own show. Season 3 has been mediocre at best, lacking the creativity, originality, and soul of its predecessors. The show that I once knew and eagerly anticipated each week has vanished into thin air. And now, at least for me, with the recent episode Guns for Hire, on April 5th, 2023, was the day that The Mandalorian died.